Hey, today we're going to do some resin infusion. Now, full disclosure, I've never done this before, but I have a need for some panels that are flat panels, super simple part, but I want really good surface finish on the bottom and the top of that plate. And so there's no better way to get that surface finish than using resin infusion. I've seen it done a couple times in person, never done it myself, so we're going to give it a try and see how we can do. First of all, your tool, I'm using just a sheet of glass. This plain sheet of glass, nothing special about it for the main tool. Now for the top of the plate, I'm going to use this. This is 14 mil Mylar. You can get this at ACP Composites. You can get this at CST Composites as well. I'm not sure where else, but those are the places I've bought it before. It's not terribly expensive, but what it does is it's flexible, but it gives you a nice smooth, shiny surface. Both surfaces have been prepared with 3 coats of wax. Part all number 2 is what I've used for those. My favorite thing, no PVA on these. I read that on glass you can get away without PVA, and I've got lots of experience with Mylar, and I've just used wax on those and it's worked great. So that's the only release agent we're using for those. As for my layup, I want it to be 0.056 inches thick for this particular application. Pretty specific about the thickness I want on it. And so your carbon fiber, this is 200 gram per square meter or 5.8 ounce per square yard carbon fiber, and it's 9 thousandths per ply. So we've got 7 plies, and that works out to 0.056 inches. All right, I've already got these plies stacked in the order that I want them. I'm going to just double check, make sure that my surface ply is clean. There's no extra whatever on it, bits of carbon. Like things like this, they tend to just get all over the place. And so you just got to watch out for those because that'll leave a blemish on your part. Going to make sure they're all pretty squared up. And I'm just going to set those right in the middle of my plate, just like that. A quick note about the release, I put masking tape all the way around the edges of the plate before I put the release agent on it, before I waxed it, because I didn't want to get wax and I didn't want it release around those edges where I'm going to put my bag sealant tape. If you do that, this stuff doesn't stick so well. You want it to stick really well, so I masked around it. We can go ahead and peel that off now. Okay. Bag sealant tape. I've heard you can get this from Home Depot in a different brand. I've never seen it there, but I know you can get it from composite stores. It's not particularly cheap, unfortunately, but it's inexpensive enough, I guess. I'd love to have a good alternative to this that wasn't expensive at all. There we go, all the way around the corner. Make sure you overlap where you have any seams. Make sure it overlaps really well. And I'm just going to leave the paper backing on there for now while I'm working, just to keep it clean, because if you get fuzzies and stuff in there, it's never going to give you a good vacuum seal. So make sure that it's well protected while you're working. Next step, we need to prepare our vacuum hoses. So you got to have 2 vacuum hoses, one to pull the vacuum from the pump, and then the other one goes to the resin the cup of resin. I always cut my hoses whenever I'm going to be doing this inside of a vacuum bag. I cut them at an angle like this. I don't know if you can see that very well. And the reason for that is if you have an end like this sitting on there, when the vacuum bag gets pulled, the vacuum bag has to bridge across that sharp end there. And you can actually sometimes get a puncture, especially if it's a little bit of a sharp edge on the tubing. So cut it this way, nice angle, and it actually seems to help a lot, prevents the bag popping. They make special fittings for doing vacuum infusion. I don't have those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some peel ply, that's what I have on hand, and we're just going to roll that around the end. Just like that. Now I want this to be basically right up on the edge of that square. And I've already got some pieces of masking tape set aside ready for this. So we'll just tape that down. So make sure that's butted up against the carbon, nice and good. I'm going to lift this up just enough to stick down. There we go. And that's stuck down. We're good to go there. All right. Next is the vacuum line. I'm going to do the same thing on that. There we go. All right, and then our Mylar is going to go right over the top of that, just like so. And we'll tape that in place. We can go ahead and seal our vacuum bag now. Peel up the tape. And where that tube comes in, we need to make sure that's sealed really well. So take a strip of bag seal tape. And I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, I'm just kind of rolling a little mustache onto there. I'm going to stick that right there over the top of that tube. Okay, vacuum bag. You can get away with drop cloth for a vacuum bag material. You don't need to buy official vacuum bagging material. I happen to have some on hand. Just make sure if you use drop cloth, use a thicker drop cloth. Don't use like the 2 mil stuff. Make sure it's something a little bit thicker, probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 at least, I would guess. Otherwise, it'll have a tendency to pop really, really easily. Now, if you get a wrinkle like I've got right here, what you want to do is use your thumbs on either side, pull it, stretch it a little bit, and then press it down. That'll get rid of those wrinkles, because this vacuum bagging material is a little bit stretchy. Pay special attention to these areas where you've got the tubes going in, because that's where it's most likely to have a leak. Now, if I were to just go ahead and pull vacuum on this, obviously it wouldn't work because this end is open. This end's going to go in the resin eventually, but for now, what we can do is kink it. Oop, hope this works. Kink it and clamp it. And that hopefully will work. Power! Oh yeah. That sucked down good and quick. Now I weighed out the fabric beforehand. It was about 35 grams. I'm gonna usually mix up the same weight in fabric and epoxy. So if it was 35 grams of fabric, I'd mix 35 grams of epoxy. For this, I'm gonna mix up a little bit extra because there's gonna be some of it's gonna be trapped up in the tubes, some of it's gonna be trapped in the peel ply, and so I wanna make sure that I've got plenty of epoxy so it makes it all the way through the layup before we run out. So I'm gonna actually go to, let's say, about 50 grams of epoxy. All right, let's give this a go. So we gotta get vacuum on first. You can see the difference in the vacuum when I kink the hose. You see it just sucks right down. All right, make sure everything's good. Now what's going to happen is it's going to suck the epoxy through the tube into the layup, and this big long wad of peel ply that I put in here, that's going to act as a channel for the resin to flow through, and then hopefully it'll work its way across the part from this end to this end, and we won't get any weird uneven spots. Hopefully it'll just work its way right across and it'll look good. We'll see how it goes. All right, that was a complete failure. Here's what happened. First of all, we pulled vacuum. I plugged the hose into my resin, and it was sucking the resin through. I thought, hey, this is great. It's starting to work. I could see it flowing through the hose into the part. I was excited. Pretty quickly, though, what happened was right here, this area around the hose started pooling up with resin. I'm like, what's going on there? Why is it going there, not in the part? I don't know. And then next thing I knew, I noticed some bubbles coming in from the side here. I had a leak in my vacuum bag. And it wasn't a tiny leak. It was actually enough of a leak that I was seeing some pretty good bubbles coming through. And so I worked that down, I tightened it out as quick as I could. I got that leak fixed, but the resin kept on pooling up around here. So this part may be completely trashed, I don't know. But here's what's kind of interesting is you can actually see that it pulled the resin all the way through. It's not this line right here. That's not where the resin stopped. Now this is the resin on top of the Mylar. The resin underneath the Mylar stopped here. So it went almost all the way across. Before I finally lost complete vacuum when my pump screwed up. The hose actually broke off. The hose broke off of the connector on the pump, so I lost complete vacuum on the part. I didn't have a chance to go ahead and try and fix it. I spent some time jerry-rigging it with some bag sealant tape trying to get it to work. It just was a hopeless mess. So I finally gave up on that, and I just took some batteries, dropped them on top. I said, well, it's mostly infused. We'll just see if we can get anything useful out of this part whatsoever. I don't know if we're going to, but if I just get a sliver about this wide, that's all I need for the part that I wanted to make. So if we get any useful part of this, we're in good shape. Let's go ahead and debag it and see how it turned out. All right, first thing I notice is that not only is there a big blob of resin all along here, but there's air bubbles, air pockets all over here. This might be so completely aerated that it's useless. I guess we'll just have to find out. Mylar comes off just fine. Oh yeah, that comes off just fine. There you go. So you can see, started to get some more porosity over here as we get closer to this side. And then obviously by the time you get over here, that didn't even get infused at all. But on this side, look how shiny that is. And look at the side that had the glass. I mean, that is as shiny as it gets. Now compare this with an example that was not infused. And you can see you've got, I think you have to focus again, come on. Nope, not there. Not there. Focus here, there you go. So you can see there's little pinholes all over in this thing. This is just a hand laid up piece. Now it's a little bit thicker weave, but you can see this happens really easily. There are ways of avoiding that, of getting that out, but the easiest way by far to get a good, really glossy, shiny part with no pinholes is Infusion. And I've got enough here, just this little section right here, to make the part that I want. Let's check the thickness. 0.064, that's close enough for my purposes. I was targeting 0.056, so we're about 5 thou off. I can handle 5 thousandths, and it's fairly consistent across the plate. So I think that's usable despite our epic failure with the vacuum pump. All right, so this was not as big of a disaster as I'd expect it to be. I've got enough of a piece here that I can actually still salvage this and use this for what I wanted to make. However, I'm pretty disappointed with how the whole thing turned out in terms of like, I wanted to have the whole sheet look really, really good. I wanted this quality on the whole thing. And to do that, I really just need to have a proper vacuum. I went to put a vacuum gauge on my pump to see how much vacuum I was actually pulling, and it's only pulling about 13 to 15 inches of mercury. Now at sea level, full vacuum is about 30. I'm not getting anywhere near that, but I know I'm 4,000 feet of elevation. I'm not going to get a full 30. About the most I can possibly get at my altitude is maybe 26 or 27 inches. That would be like a perfect full vacuum. I'm not getting that. I'm probably getting, well, if I could get even close to that, I'd be pretty darn happy, but it's not doing it. So I'm going to play with the pump some, see if I can figure out what's going on, if I can get a better vacuum out of this old pump. If not, I might eventually just go pick something else up, something new. I'd like to see how this works for you guys. If you've tried it, let me know how it's worked out for you. Maybe you have some ideas for what I've screwed up on why it is that I ended up with these big blobs of resin out here. I'd be curious to hear your feedback. If you've got any ideas, send them my way. Go ahead and put them in the comment section. And of course, like, subscribe, share. I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks.